The city awoke slowly, as if stretching from a deep slumber. The first rays of the sun kissed the rooftops, and a gentle hum drifted through the streets. It was the calm before the day's storm, a quiet whisper that promised the rhythm of life. From distant corners, the aroma of roasted maize mingled with fresh bread from early street vendors, their voices calling out to anyone passing by. "Hot bread! Fresh bread! Come taste the warmth of the morning!" one vendor cried, stacking loaves neatly on a woven tray. Another stirred a pot of spicy akara, steam curling upward like a message to the sky. Children scurried past, eager for a sweet treat before school. The city seemed alive, but not yet awake, its heartbeat slow and steady, like the pulse of an elder's drum. The first taxis honked as they navigated narrow streets, weaving through market stalls. The chatter of shopkeepers, the clang of metal, and the occasional shout of a hurried pedestrian blended into a symphony of daily life. Each noise told a story, someone rushing to work, a mother calling her child, the market's energy thrumming like the city's own heartbeat. Outside the old barber shop, elders sat on wooden benches, observing the youth with quiet scrutiny. Their faces, lined with years of wisdom, watched children run past, boys and girls carrying schoolbags, dreams, and the weight of expectations. "These children, they grow too fast," muttered one elder, adjusting his cap. "The city will teach them things our mothers never imagined." Meanwhile, gossip flowed unseen, slipping from mouth to mouth like water through a sieve. Whispers about who had argued last night, who received gifts from whom, and which young couple had been spotted near the park traveled quickly, carried by neighbors and vendors alike. The river of stories moved silently but powerfully, shaping reputations before the sun had fully risen. The tension between tradition and modern life tugged at the city's heart. On one corner, a group of women in traditional wrappers chatted beside a smartphone shop, balancing the old and the new with every word and glance. The city's skyline, dotted with gleaming towers, reflected ambition and progress, yet in the shadows, ancient customs whispered reminders: honor your elders, respect your home, and value patience over haste. As night fell, the calm of the morning gave way to a roaring city alive with temptation. Loud music spilled from clubs, neon lights flickered like distant stars, and the young and restless wandered streets, their desires bold and bright. The nightlife carried promises of excitement but also dangers, for not every path led home safely. The quiet hum of dawn seemed a distant memory, replaced by the loud, reckless pulse of modern temptation. Yet the contrast was striking. The morning's gentle whisper and the night's chaotic drum existed side by side. The city, ever alive, was a place of choices, temptations, and the quiet strength required to navigate them. At the heart of this city lived Amina, a woman whose mornings began with ritual and calm. She swept the floors, lit incense, and brewed tea, moving with the grace of one who had learned that patience is power. She greeted the day softly, humming a lullaby her mother once sang, and kissed the children goodbye as they ran off to school. In her classroom, Amina's voice carried authority without anger. "Listen closely, children," she said gently, guiding their hands through letters and numbers. Her students respected her not through fear, but through admiration, drawn to her calm wisdom and the warmth in her eyes. Amina's reputation in the neighborhood was that of a wife who never raised her voice, a woman whose quiet strength held a household together. Across the city, Karim strode through sleek office towers, his pride growing as his tech career flourished. Meetings, presentations, and awards gave him the recognition he craved. Friends fed his ego, teasing him about old-fashioned wives, while he drank in the modern city's promise. "Amina's too soft for this world," one friend laughed over drinks, clapping him on the back. Karim smiled, the seed of temptation planting itself deeper in his heart. And then there was Zuri, a young woman whose entrance into the city's nightlife was flashy, unforgettable. Her heels clicked like the ticking of a clock, her laughter spilling into crowded rooms. She sought luxury and status, her obsession with social media fame driving her every action. Every post, every photo, was calculated to shine brighter than the last. The pull between Karim and Zuri was magnetic and dangerous. Karim, ambitious and restless, found in Zuri a mirror of the city's bright allure. Zuri, eager for recognition, saw in Karim a ticket to wealth and status. Their connection was electric, a spark of desire set against the quiet flame of Amina's patience. The city watched silently as the balance between loyalty and temptation, tradition and modernity, began to tilt. Even in this urban jungle, the lessons of old whispered on the wind: patience is power, loyalty is strength, and even the quietest heart can become a storm. Karim returned home later each night. His steps were hurried, his clothes slightly disheveled, and his excuses always the same. Work ran late, deadlines, he muttered, avoiding Amina's steady gaze. She watched him carefully, noticing the subtle changes. His phone was never where it should be, and the soft voice that once greeted her warmly now carried sharp edges. "Karim," she asked one evening, quietly, "why are you so tired and angry when you come home? Did something happen at work?" He waved her question away, irritation flickering in his eyes. "Nothing, Amina. Just work. I'm fine." But she was not blind. The scent of unfamiliar perfume clung faintly to his jacket, lingering like a ghost of someone else's presence. Bank notifications pinged softly from her phone, revealing transfers she did not recognize. Her heart sank, sensing shadows creeping where there should have been honesty. Meanwhile, Zuri flaunted her triumph online. She posted pictures with glittering cocktails, captioning them with playful arrogance. Winning never felt this sweet, yet the message was unmistakable. Across the neighborhood, whispers began to ripple. Neighbors spoke in low tones behind closed doors. "Have you noticed Karim coming home later? Did you see her posts online? Surely something is wrong." The unseen river of gossip carried every suspicion, every hint, growing faster than the morning wind. Amina felt the weight settle deep in her chest. Doubts whispered silently, yet she held them close. She could feel the change in the air, heavy and pressing, but she did not act hastily. One afternoon, seeking guidance, she visited Elder Abayoy, a man whose wisdom was known throughout the city. He greeted her with a gentle nod. "Child," he said, "the trees of this city bend with the wind, but even the quietest roots feel the storm. Watch, listen, and learn." His words struck her like distant drums echoing through her heart. She left his home with a renewed sense of focus, the proverb of the elders guiding her, "A silent stream carves the hardest rock in time." Every wall seemed to watch as Karim's secret life grew bolder. Windows reflected the late-night lights of unseen gatherings, and the city streets whispered with every hurried step he took. The walls of their home, too, felt alive, silent witnesses to the unfolding deception. At night, Amina knelt in quiet prayer. Her whispers rose like incense, each word a shield, each plea a sword. She did not scream or accuse. She sought clarity, patience, and strength. "I will see clearly," she murmured. "I will act with wisdom, not anger. Let truth find its way." She decided to observe, not confront, as the elders had always taught. Her silence became her strength. Like the lioness who watches the herd before striking, she prepared herself. Her eyes, calm but unwavering, reflected the power of restraint. Every beat of her heart was a drum of resolve, every breath a pledge to honor the path of patience. She would wait, and when the moment came, justice would follow, not from noise, not from rage, but from careful, unwavering action. Karim's wallet opened as freely as the river in the rainy season, and with each gift, each hotel booking, he closed the doors of his wisdom a little more. He handed over cash and cards, believing that shiny objects and fleeting pleasures could replace the calm foundation he had at home. "Zuri, this is yours," he said one evening, placing a delicate bracelet in her hand. "I want you to have the best." Zuri's eyes sparkled like fireflies. "It's beautiful, but Karim, can we move into a better place? A place that shows I belong to someone who can give me everything." Her demands were soft, almost sweet, but they carried the weight of entitlement. Karim nodded, ignoring the voice inside him that whispered of tradition, of loyalty, of the home that waited for him. Nights were no longer filled with quiet reflection. They became long drives through glittering streets, hotel rooms scented with newness, and laughter that masked guilt. The man who once bowed his head at dawn, whispering prayers for his family, now slept past sunrise. The rooster's call found him still tangled in silk sheets, the warmth of another woman's presence replacing the quiet rituals of home. At their apartment, Amina felt the chill creeping in, a wind that spoke of betrayal. She noticed the absence of his prayers, the coldness in his tone, the way the morning light no longer touched him in peace. She walked through their rooms, her hands lingering on the spaces he had left behind, sensing the emptiness he carried elsewhere. The nights grew louder, the city's temptations feeding Karim's pride. Music throbbed from clubs where neon lights bathed him in a false glow. The man who once honored tradition now danced carelessly, drunk with attention and the thrill of breaking free. His laughter rang out in the streets like a challenge to the values that had shaped him. Amina, however, did not panic. She watched silently, like an elder who tells stories not just with words but with measured glances and long pauses. She noted the transfers from their accounts, the hotel bills that came unbidden into their mailbox. Money flowed away like water through a basket, and she memorized every pattern, every irregularity. She tracked his nights out, his messages, and his companions with a patience born of generations of women who had witnessed storms and lived to tell the tale. Quiet tears fell sometimes, but more often she simply observed, the gentle rise and fall of her breath, the slow tightening of resolve in her chest. Her calm became a presence, almost tangible, a force that the audience could feel gathering. The storm had not yet come, but its prelude hummed through her being. In her silence, she spoke louder than Karim's lies. Her measured movements, her thoughtful nods when asked questions, her soft smile when neighbors commented, all became signals that she was aware, that she was preparing, and that she was far stronger than anyone could yet imagine. By the time Karim returned from yet another night of indulgence, Amina's eyes met his, steady and unflinching. There was no confrontation yet, only the quiet weight of understanding. And in that silence, Karim felt, even if he did not recognize it, the power of the woman he had taken for granted, the lioness that waited, patiently, for the right moment to strike. Amina's home was a sanctuary of warmth and ancient wisdom. The walls bore the faint aroma of kola nuts and incense, gifts of tradition that carried lessons from generations past. Family photographs lined the shelves, capturing moments of love and commitment. The gentle hum of the city seemed to soften when it reached her doorstep, and each corner of her home whispered patience, dignity, and cultural pride. Children laughed in the courtyard under her watchful gaze, their innocence a reminder of values that could not be bought or replaced. This home was a heartbeat of tradition in a world racing ahead. Meanwhile, Zuri's world glittered like a sun on mirrored glass. Neon lights, designer clothes, and the constant ping of notifications created a rhythm of vanity and fast money. She posed for selfies in shimmering outfits, each post carefully calculated for attention and approval. Life is meant to shine, she told herself, scrolling past comments of admiration, unaware of the emptiness behind the clicks. Her world moved fast, flashy, and shallow, a playground of illusions where nothing old or steady could survive. Karim stood between these worlds, blind to the danger he was weaving. At home, he smiled at Amina's calm demeanor, appreciating her patience but thinking little of it. By night, he laughed with Zuri, swept by the thrill of city lights and applause. "I'm working hard," he muttered one evening, handing Zuri another gift. "Don't worry, Amina understands." But he did not understand. He did not see that with each indulgence, he was unraveling the very foundation that had held his home together. This tale mirrored the struggles of many in modern African cities, the clash between enduring values and the seductive temptations of urban life. Marriage, once sacred and patient, now faced challenges from streets lit with neon promises. Elders shook their heads in quiet despair. "The streets are raising our sons now," one said, tapping his walking stick. "They forget the homes that bore them, chasing lights that burn fast and vanish." Amina's mother, sitting across from her in the courtyard, spoke with soft urgency. "Child, a broken home brings shame that follows like shadows at noon. You must guard what is sacred, even if the city tempts you to surrender." Amina listened, her heart heavy but her mind clear. She nodded slowly, absorbing the weight of generations in her mother's words. Her friend, visiting from across town, leaned closer and whispered, "Do not let him take what belongs to your heart. Fight like a lioness protecting her territory. Calm does not mean weakness, it is the strength before the storm." Amina felt the truth of it settle in her chest like a drumbeat of resolve. Even Karim's sisters began to notice. They murmured to each other, smelling trouble in the air like smoke before a fire. "He isn't coming home on time," one said. "Something is not right." Their eyes, sharp and observant, caught the shifts in behavior that others ignored. Rumors, as if carried by the harmattan winds, flew through the city. Stories of late nights, unexpected gifts, and social media hints spread like wildfire. Neighbors whispered behind closed doors, children overheard adults, and the city itself seemed to pulse with the tension of secrets. Amina heard these whispers, but she did not speak yet. She let them pass over her, using them as threads to weave a clearer picture of the truth. The family began to see cracks they had once denied. Small signs, the empty chair at breakfast, hushed phone calls, and the faint scent of another woman, combined into undeniable patterns. Eyes that had turned away now looked squarely at reality. Even the most stubborn relatives could no longer pretend that all was well. The weight of truth pressed against their pride, demanding recognition. Amina, quietly seated, felt the stirrings of resolve deepen. The city's temptations, the whispers, the absent husband, they would not break her. Instead, they shaped her, forming a calm strength like river rocks smoothed by patient water. She understood, as elders had long taught, that the storm must be observed before it can be met. And in her silence, she prepared. Karim walked into the corporate event, his arm draped possessively around Zuri. She wore a glittering dress, her laughter high-pitched and practiced, a song that cut through the low hum of polite conversation. Heads turned, whispers spreading like wind through dry grass. Karim's smile was confident, yet hollow, unaware that every eye now measured him, not for his achievements, but for the betrayal he carried. Across the room, Amina's colleagues watched from a distance. Their eyes were heavy with pity, some shifting uncomfortably as they recognized the wife who had always greeted them with warmth and humility. One whispered, "She doesn't deserve this." Another shook his head softly, a sigh escaping lips that had long admired her patience and quiet strength. The news reached Amina like a spear through the heart. One of her friends, concerned, nudged her gently. "Amina, Karim is here, with Zuri. Everyone can see." Her stomach clenched. The laughter, the display, the very sight of her husband in the arms of another pierced deeper than words. As she stepped outside, the sky seemed to mourn with her. Dark clouds gathered quickly, and rain began to pour, first in drops and then in a steady curtain. It drummed on her umbrella and ran in rivulets along the streets. Each drop mirrored the shards of her heart, washing over the pain, yet also awakening a strange clarity. She walked alone, her dress clinging to her as the city's chaos blurred into a rhythm of cleansing and renewal. With each step, her strength began to rebuild. She felt the rain strip away the bitterness, leaving behind a resolve as solid as the old baobab trees that had watched generations pass. Her mind sharpened. She would not crumble. She would rise. The storm was no longer a punishment, it was a signal. By the time she reached home, Amina's sorrow had transformed into purpose. She wiped her tears, straightened her back, and breathed in the cool evening air. Her eyes, once heavy with hurt, now gleamed with determination. She began to collect evidence with the precision of a hunter tracking footprints through the forest. Every bank statement, hotel receipt, screenshot, and voice note became a thread in the tapestry she was weaving. Nothing escaped her attention. Every detail was noted, catalogued, and stored. Neighbors, curious yet respectful, watched quietly as she moved silently through her home. They noticed her diligence, her calm, and the intensity in her eyes. Whispers arose again, but this time they carried awe. This was no ordinary quietness. It was a calm that commanded respect. Her calm began to harden, taking on the cold edge of a sharpened blade. Not a cruel cold, but one born of wisdom and preparation. She was ready for the confrontation that would come, and she understood fully that patience, measured and unwavering, was far more dangerous than anger. Amina reflected on the lessons her grandmother had whispered many years ago. A quiet woman's patience is sharper than a blade. She waits, watches, and strikes only when the time is right. The world may not see her power, but it trembles before it. And so, with the rain still dripping from the eaves and the city's lights flickering in puddles below, Amina prepared. The storm had passed, leaving clarity, strategy, and a heart ready for justice. She would no longer be a passive observer. Her quiet had become her weapon. Her patience had become her shield. The lioness was awake. Amina moved through her apartment like a shadow under the moonlight, silent, deliberate, and unseen. Every step, every movement, carried the calm strength that her grandmother had praised in tales told by firelight. She did not speak. She did not hurry. Her mind was sharp, weaving a plan as precise as a hunter tracking a cunning prey. The city outside pulsed with its usual chaos, but inside, the air was thick with anticipation, carrying the scent of incense and slow-cooked spices that spoke of patience and wisdom. Invitations had been sent weeks earlier, summoning not only family but respected elders of the community. She understood the gravity of her actions. This was no ordinary confrontation. This was a matter of honor, of trust, and of cultural truth. The elders would come, their presence a bridge between generations, and their wisdom a sword to cut through pretense. Karim would not face Amina alone. He would face the eyes of the community, where shame could not hide. The apartment began to smell of simmering stews, roasted yams, and spiced meat, each dish chosen for its symbolic power. One dish called for unity, another for peace, a third for truth. These were foods that carried the weight of tradition, meals that ancestors had prepared in times of crisis, when hearts needed to be reminded of their shared bonds. The aroma wound through the rooms, signaling both welcome and warning. Karim arrived first, pride swelling in his chest. He saw Amina standing calmly by the window and assumed he had won the silent war. "She's finally letting it go," he whispered to Zuri, eyes sparkling with foolish triumph. "She wants to fix this." He believed her silence was weakness, and in that misreading, he walked into the snare she had so carefully set. Zuri, draped in glittering silk and confidence, strolled in as though she were the queen of the gathering. She smirked at Amina, thinking this dinner a coronation of her success. "See, everyone admires me now," she said softly, ignoring the subtle glances of doubt from those who knew her reputation. Her arrogance filled the room, mistaking patience for submission. As guests arrived, the room filled with the weight of expectation. Families shifted uneasily in their seats, elders murmured greetings, and the atmosphere hummed with anticipation. Beneath Amina's calm smile lay a storm, invisible to the untrained eye but palpable to those who could feel the rhythm of truth slowly unfurling. When Amina finally rose, the room fell silent, her dignity echoing the matriarchs of generations past who confronted wrongs without shouting. She stood at the head of the room, hand steady, voice calm but firm. "Let us look at what has been hidden," she said, and the screen flickered to life. Screenshots, receipts, call logs, and hotel slips illuminated the room, exposing the darkness like spirits unearthing secrets. Each image told a story of betrayal, each number and date a thread in the web Karim had woven. Zuri's voice notes played next, her mocking laughter echoing through the apartment like drums of shame. "He's mine now, she doesn't understand," the sound reverberated, shaking the very air. The elders exchanged heavy glances, their disappointment almost tangible. This was not a dispute of hearts. This was a disgrace to the culture they had sworn to uphold. Murmurs died, eyes turned downward, and the room thickened with tension so sharp it could be felt like a living presence. Karim's parents hung their heads in shame, and Zuri's hands trembled, the first cracks appearing in her proud facade. Silence settled over the gathering, heavy and suffocating. It was a silence that cut deeper than any words could. In that quiet, Amina's calm bore the power of generations. The wrongs were laid bare. The city's temptations had been exposed. And the lioness, patient and poised, had begun to strike, not with anger, but with truth. The elders rose, their eyes sharp like hawks surveying a prey that had lost its way. They called Karim forward, their voices steady but heavy with centuries of wisdom. "Step here, son of your fathers," one elder intoned, "and hear the shame you have brought upon your lineage." Karim shuffled, his shoulders tight with guilt, his head bowed. He felt the weight of generations pressing down, the ancestors' silent judgment sharper than any blade. "You have traded peace for pleasure, trust for temptation. What you sought in the streets, you have lost at home," the elder continued, each word a blow that left him trembling. All eyes turned to Zuri, whose confident smirk faltered under the elder's scrutiny. "And you, child of the city," another elder said, voice heavy with disappointment, "are the symbol of madness, of morals forgotten. You tore at a home not yours, chasing illusions and vanity. The city taught you no honor, and you carried none to this gathering." Zuri's head bowed as murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. She felt the sting of truth, a lesson too late. The families exchanged sorrowful glances, their hearts aching at the collapse of trust. Karim's parents spoke softly. "We prayed our son would honor the home, yet he gave it to false lights and empty laughter." Amina's own family nodded, grief and quiet pride mingling in their expressions. It was a reckoning, a reflection of what happens when values are abandoned. Karim fell to his knees, tears streaming down his face. "Amina, forgive me," he cried, his voice cracking. "I see now the wisdom I ignored, the peace I destroyed. I was blind to your strength, and I am broken." He looked to the elders, hoping their mercy could undo his shame, but none offered easy solace. The judgment of generations weighed on him, unforgiving and relentless. Amina's tears fell silently. One drop traced her cheek like a river carving stone, slow, deliberate, powerful. She did not wail, she did not shout. Her dignity was a shield, a quiet testament that betrayal could not break her spirit. Every eye in the room felt the weight of her composed sorrow, heavier than Karim's loud, desperate cries. In that moment, she became the embodiment of every tale her grandmother had told, the quiet woman who commands storms with patience. Her voice, steady as the drumbeat of the ancestors, filled the room. "The lawyers have been contacted. The home will either follow separation or the strict conditions of reconciliation. Nothing hidden can remain hidden." She laid bare the truth of Karim's waste, the money spent, the night squandered, the trust shattered. Each revelation cut cleanly, a mirror held up to his folly. Turning to the families and elders, she spoke with grace. "Thank you for witnessing this. May we all learn that honor, loyalty, and patience are stronger than temptation and deceit." Her words hung in the air, carried the weight of justice, and resonated with ancestral authority. Amina rose and walked toward the door. Each step echoed through the apartment like a drumbeat of liberation. She did not look back, for her chains had fallen, and she carried only freedom. The room was still, the elders silent, the families reflecting on the storm they had witnessed. Outside, the city's lights shimmered as if bowing to her quiet strength. She stepped into the night, the wind brushing her face, carrying with it the promise of new beginnings, the whispers of African tales that spoke of women who rise above betrayal, stronger than the storms they endure. Amina stepped through the worn wooden gate of her mother's compound, the familiar scent of palm thatch and freshly ground millet wrapping around her like a comforting shawl. Her mother, sitting on a carved wooden stool, looked up with eyes that had seen generations rise and fall. "Child," she said softly, "the heart must be mended before it can love again." Amina sank to her knees, feeling the warmth of her mother's hands upon her shoulders, and a deep calm began to return to her spirit. Here, among stories of ancestors and whispered wisdom, she felt the first stirrings of strength after the storm. When she later moved into her new apartment, the space hummed with quiet possibilities. Sunlight spilled across the walls, untouched by clutter or chaos. Each object she placed carried intention, a chair for reflection, a small pot of herbs for healing, a stack of books to feed the mind. This was her sanctuary, a place where silence did not feel empty but empowering. She poured herself into her work, guiding children who hung on every word she spoke, her patience and soft authority shaping their young hearts. In the evenings, she visited neighbors, helping the elderly carry water, tending to the sick, and sharing meals with those alone. Slowly, her sense of purpose returned, stitched together by the love she offered freely. Women in the community began to watch her, whispering in admiration. "See how she moves, calm and unbroken," they would say. Amina's dignity became a quiet teaching of its own, her presence a living story of patience and resilience. Healing came not in leaps but in careful, deliberate steps. Each morning, like dew soaking dry grass, her heart absorbed the gentleness of her surroundings. She laughed softly, smiled often, and learned again to breathe fully, letting the past settle like earth after a storm. Meanwhile, Karim's world began to crumble. At work, colleagues no longer greeted him with warmth. Their eyes were heavy with judgment, their whispers sharp as the harmattan wind. Friends who once reveled in his flashy life now avoided his calls, leaving him to walk through empty streets of his own making. The parties, the nights spent in neon and noise, now seemed hollow and exposed. Desperate, Karim sought forgiveness. He arrived at Amina's mother's compound, voice quivering, hands outstretched. "Amina, I have been blind. Please, let me make this right." But the weight of betrayal pressed down like a rock on a riverbed. His apologies were small ripples against an unyielding current. He realized, as many African tales teach, that trust is a clay pot once broken. It may be mended, but the cracks always remain. And some cracks cannot hold water again. The city carried on around them, yet within Amina, a new chapter began, a story of dignity restored, a life rebuilt, and a woman walking firmly in the rhythm of her ancestors. Zuri woke to silence. The music that once pulsed through her penthouse apartment no longer played. Her heels, expensive and sharp, clicked against empty floors that once held laughter and gossip. Without Kareem's wealth flowing like a river at her command, her world glittered no more. The fast cars, the designer bags, the nights of endless celebration, they had vanished, leaving her exposed to a reality she had long avoided. She stared at her reflection, the face once admired now lined with uncertainty, the mask of charm stripped away. Her phone vibrated incessantly, but instead of likes and praise, the screen displayed mocking memes, screenshots, and reposted clips that branded her as the cautionary tale of the city. Social media, the very stage she had built her fame upon, now became a mirror reflecting her folly. The friends who had cheered her rise, whose lives had gleamed alongside her, disappeared without explanation. The silence of abandonment weighed heavily, louder than any insult she had ever faced. At last, Zuri confronted a truth she could not evade. Happiness built on stolen joy, on another's ruin, cannot endure. The lesson, sharp as the harmattan wind, cut through her pride. She lowered her gaze, finally facing the moral rot she had chosen over integrity, feeling the sting of consequence in every breath. In the village and city alike, elders gathered to reflect on the story of Amina, whispering among themselves under the shade of ancient trees. "See how patience and dignity rise," one elder said, "and how rash hearts fall." Young couples listened, nodding solemnly as lessons of respect, loyalty, and devotion were shared. Warnings carried through the air like drumbeats. The streets, the screens, the allure of quick wealth can blind even the strongest hearts. And yet, a quiet woman, who bears pain in silence, holds the calm before destiny's thunder, a storm whose timing is always just. Amina climbed the hill overlooking the city lights, her heart carrying both sorrow and liberation. She breathed in the night, feeling the cool wind sweep away the remnants of betrayal. Though pain lingered, her spirit walked lighter, moving in rhythm with the wisdom of generations. "When the drum of betrayal beats," the narrator intoned, voice low and steady, "only the wise woman dances her way to peace." The city glittered beneath her, a world of lessons witnessed, of hearts tested, and of dignity restored. Amina's journey, quiet yet mighty, became the story that would echo through households, markets, and schools for years to come, a tale of patience, strength, and the enduring power of truth.